Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. My name is Josh Bitsko, and I'm a retired police captain with 24 years of experience out of Las Vegas. Currently, I travel the country and I teach people about courage, resilience, and leadership. So, long day of recording.
But, yeah, and you're joined by your wife.
Oh, and I'm joined by my man. I did really good in the first 30 of those, and now for some reason, okay. I don't think about it.
That's right.
Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. I'm joined by my wife and co-host, Jenna.
Hi.
No, because I forgot because I was so excited. I'm excited to go see Project Hail Mary. Mm-hmm. I read the book. It's by the same author that wrote The Martian. Mm-hmm. Andy Weir. Remember?
I don't know.
I remember. I've read a couple of books of his, and but Project Hail Mary, I was excited for the book. I'm excited for the movie. We'll see how it is. I know you love sci-fi so much, so I know you're super excited about it.
It is my favorite movie genre. And I did get a full rundown of what the book was about, so I know what the movie's about, and I can already tell you that Ryan Gosling is not who I would pick for that character. I was thinking more Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
Like having a hot middle school teacher save the world is, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it, just like not what I would imagine.
Well, maybe it was intentional for...
Maybe to get the wives to go. That's probably pretty smart.
But there are women out there that like sci-fi too. Maybe there's women out there that like sci-fi and Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are the same girls that read, romantasy or fantasy, Court of Thorns and Roses. I made it through book 1 and a quarter of book 2 and said, no, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
No shade.
No, we're losing followers.
Don't at me.
The
Just
Court of Thorns and Roses group loves Bitsko or the Courage to Live podcast. Okay, so in today's podcast, we've talked about failure and how you learn when you fail, but today we kind of wanted to get into, as a leader, allowing people to fail and what you can do or what that causes and how you can overcome that to help develop your people.
Yeah, why it's important.
Yeah. And we will, during one of the training exercises we did, it was an interesting scenario because the sergeant of the group of officers knew the scenario, right? Because he was part of some of the creation, but he also had to go out there and work it with them. And, some of his officers were struggling and watching him like, okay, I don't like letting them fail, but I also can't get involved because I know the scenario and that wouldn't be fair and it would rob them of training. He actually did a really good job of balancing that. But you could see like he was definitely upset afterwards, right? But he opted to allow his team to learn,
make mistakes
over his own ego. And oh yeah, my squad did great, and listen, we all want that, right? Your employees are a reflection of your leadership. It doesn't mean everyone's going to be perfect or anything like that. If you're an amazing leader, you have to allow people to make mistakes. But like I have had times where teams did great, and someone called me and was like, "Hey, you guys are firing all cylinders, and that feels really good." But at the same time, if we're not allowing our people to fail, are we allowing them to learn?
Right. I don't think so.
Yeah. And I think that, we did a whole podcast on how you learn through failure. And, I talked about jujitsu tournaments and work and, all these failures, but I learned so much from those failures, and I talk about it in my class. But then you go to a leadership position and, you have to balance, obviously, the mission and operations of the team and day-to-day operations and training and making sure that people are training, you're putting on scenario training from them. But, you also you don't want them to fail to the point where it's going to affect their careers or, impact, like for policing, impact the community or something like that, or even training fail so bad that they get nothing from the training, if that makes sense.
Which I think is really cool about the way that you set training up it's always for people to learn, but never for them to fail so much that they walk away questioning their abilities, right? Like it's allowing them to make mistakes, but not to the point where they're going to walk away and think this was a stupid training. I learned nothing, or I'm really terrible at being a cop. Like, I think that you do a really good job balancing that.
I appreciate that. And I try to do that both in like live exercises and even tabletops. Like, I don't make it so hard, but at the same time, I want to make sure that, they learn, they're challenged, they're a little stressed. Um, but I always have it set up to where everything's winnable, I guess.
Mhm.
What I tell people, my goal is to leave with your eyes a little open and a little more prepared.
Yep.
Like, oh, maybe these are some areas of improvement. But at the same time, now I feel a little more confident going into a scenario.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing for the live exercises. I want you to fail a little bit. I don't want to rob you of that experience of learning. And if you don't, then great. That means you are a expert in your field, and you put a lot of time and effort into being successful.
Mhm.
But again, training should be hard, and I need to put my money where my mouth is, because in every class I say, like, when trying to get people over that tactical paralysis, is you have to have the ability to fail in training to learn. But when we come in as a consultant creating training, there's this desire to want everybody to leave all,
Yeah.
butterflies and rainbows and unicorns, and that was the most amazing training. But if you didn't do great, it's going to be hard to like have that feeling.
Yeah. Well, and I think so as leaders, I feel like it's hard to allow your people to fail because, well, for multiple reasons. One being it makes you look bad, or there's the thought or stigma that, oh, if I let my team fail, it's going to come back on me poorly, that I'm a poor leader or I can't do my job. And I think that if you're allowing people in training scenarios, and outside of policing, in trainings, or on a project or something like that isn't high stakes, that will enable them to make the correct decisions that they need to make when that scenario happens again, when it matters, right? I mean, we have a friend that's a dentist, and I think about, like, okay, I am sure that during dental school she made mistakes, right? But those were in training scenarios, so that when she's in real life doing a root canal, she's not making those same mistakes that she made during training. All of that to say, it doesn't have to be specific to policing. It can be other fields too. The point is allowing people to fail in those moments that aren't high stakes, so that when they are, they're able to perform. Right?
Yeah. And I even think there is at times some opportunity to allow people to go off on their own and have the ability to fail even outside of training. And I mean, I'm not saying like an active shooter or a mandatory arrest or something like that, but you give someone a project and you give them the parameters for the project, and then let them go.
Mhm.
And there's that chance that they're going to fail. And that's when the real leadership happens. Is it, am I going to take and develop this person? I gave them the opportunity to be creative and go off on their own. And you know what? If they knock my socks off, great. Great. That's awesome. And they're going to have more confidence. And I got to delegate and didn't have to be involved in every part of it. But at the same time, in just allowing them the space to go do, like I said, I'm talking like a small project, like a COP project, or like a community project that it's like maybe an event where you have like, we used to have like kid boxing events, not like kids fighting like Fight Club, but like we would have like sportings, like we'd have different gyms that had kids that boxed, and it was a heavily Hispanic area, and we'd have a big event. Or so that it's not Child Fight Club. So there's these opportunities where it's like, not life or death, that you give someone a project, let them, maybe it's the first time they've done it, let them go out and work it, and knowing they may make mistakes, they may fail. And then as a leader, you come in and then use that as a growing opportunity. Like, how am I going to develop this person now? Because they made this, but it wasn't life or their death. I'm not going to chew you out or write you up or anything like that. You know, if it was that important, I would have been more involved and then progress through there like that. So I do think there's opportunities outside of training. You have to allow people to fail, because if not, there's a couple things that can happen, right? That the first, everyone that's watching this knows micromanaging, right? Is okay. I don't want them to fail. I don't want to look bad, because usually micromanaging comes out of fear or ego. So I'm going to be, involved in every part of this because it can't fail. And, that causes burnout for the leader too. But then, the employees, they don't ever grow. They get used to their supervisor coming in and holding their hands and having every answer for them.
Well, yeah, and that translates to, if you're stepping in as a leader to correct every single, little thing, what does that do when it's an active shooter? It turns into a Uvalde, right? You're waiting for leadership to step in and say, okay, now do this, now do this, now do this, instead of acting and doing what you know you need to do. Well, you don't know what to do because you've never really had to know.
Yeah.
Nobody's given you the opportunity to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think, again, that can also translate outside of policing, just in, if you're that boss and you're coming in and making sure everybody's doing everything right all the time, and you have to, then you're never going to be able to delegate anything to them. They're not going to develop into somebody that then could be a leader, because they don't have to learn themselves.
Yeah.
Just, you're going to come in and do this for me. You train them to expect that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's a big thing that happens with leaders that micromanage or get too involved, and it halts that development of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember so many times that my squad, my job, and I'm going mostly as a sergeant, but I had the same thing as a lieutenant and as a captain. But as a sergeant, I'd have a cop come to me so excited with a plan. Hey, I want to do this. I'm like, okay, that sounds fun. Let's do it. I might have thought it was a dumb plan, but see them excited to take the risk and step outside their normal job. I remember I was a PSU sergeant, and
it's plainclothes unit.
Yeah, plainclothes problem solving unit. And this was a big deal. It was called apple picking.
Remember it.
Yeah. And, this was 2000. Oh, no, I was a sergeant. So 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had a couple of cases where we had people that they would basically walk into a coffee shop or restaurant. People would have their phone sitting on the table. They'd snatch the phone, run out. Sometimes they'd snatch it out of somebody's hand, and then they go to the little, at that little electronics store, and they take it apart and sell it for parts. Mm-hmm. And so, we had a couple of these cases, and we got tied 100 to this little group of 19-year-olds. And
who, by the way, we're selling them to these, like you said, they would fix your laptop, fix mm-hmm. your whatever. Then I figured out that they were laundering those to the Chinese.
You did?
Yes. That was actually a published article by the FBI.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
Yeah.
Shoot.
That's the one good thing I did for the FBI.
I don't think I ever knew that. I don't think you ever told me that story.
I was pretty proud of that.
It is. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And so then one of my guys on my squad came to me and it's like, hey, we should do public service announcements and all of this. We should do a blitz. And this was a young cop. Now I talked about looking at problems bigger as their boss, but this wasn't even my idea. I'm like, sure. Well, how should we do this? He's like, well, let's call the PIO. They called the news. We did a little this is so far outside of policing, but acting where someone would snatch a phone. Ooh. It was a PSA. And it ended up getting picked. They showed it on the local news, and it ended up getting picked on the national news. And it was just it was kind of cool that, again, not me. And I get, you guys run with it. I'll make sure that you have what you need, and just kind of stepped out of the way. Mm-hmm. And it was just really cool to see and that was the reason I bring that up. Obviously I had other things that I delegated, but that was the first one. I was a newer sergeant. I was maybe a 2-year sergeant.
Well, you were allowing them to try.
Yeah.
And maybe fail, but they didn't.
Yeah.
But you allowed them to try.
They also saw me lose my temper on that case because the DA, and I know the DA's name, I remember, and and he like dropped 50 larceny from persons to like some gross miss one and probation. And I was on the phone with the DA because I could hear one of them on the phone with the DA. I'm like, give me that phone, because I knew what was happening. And I was like, and I lost my temper, and I ruined his phone and broke it.
Ooh.
And
Did you buy him a new phone?
it was a department phone.
Oh, okay. Oh, watch out. Tim, Tom, whoever he is, he's going to get you for that one.
Well, yeah.
He did not like the story about Mickey Mouse being torn up by Loki. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well,
hope you're having a better day, Tim or Tom or whatever your name is.
Well, the statute of limitations is up on that. It
Yeah.
was a broken cell phone, and it was a flip phone.
That's why people don't like the police.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Oh yeah, because the doc. Well, this was our phone, but
yeah, whatever.
Anyway, I got so mad, and then I ended up calling his boss, and it was just a whole thing. But anyway, long story short, we got a little off track. But I do think it was the first one I ever did. I was just super excited to like see them, go out and do something. And could they fail? Yeah. But they didn't. And, but I think there's value in allowing people the leash to succeed or fail, because if they succeed, great. And you have a story that 20 years after I'm still talking about, or 15 years after. And if they fail, they have lessons that they will never forget.
Right.
So I do think that there's value in allowing people to fail in training, and it just ultimately just helping develop people, because that's your job as a leader too.
Well, yes. And are there any other things that you can think of that it benefits you as a leader to allow your people to fail?
Yes, because if you develop them through training, through failing in training, or these little small projects, they become better. And then when you delegate things to them, they'll fail less. And so as you're delegating out to people to do projects, I now have the confidence.
Well, it builds trust, right?
Yeah.
It builds trust for them that you're not going to scream at them or punish them for making a mistake. And it also builds trust with you that you know that you can give them bigger projects. You can give them bigger things to handle. You know that they can handle their own. If they're a cop or, whatever it is, you can give them bigger things, and you have the trust in them that they'll have the ability to do it. And I think too that they will take accountability if they do mess up, because there's the trust there between the two of you.
Yeah.
They will feel more comfortable coming to you saying, hey, I screwed this up. And then you guys figure it out together, as opposed to this culture of fear that's created by, micromanaging, and then feeling like you can never make a mistake. And then you're scared to say you made a mistake because then you're going to get in big trouble. And it just creates this vicious cycle of perfectionism, which we've talked about. But also that cycle of perfectionism then does not allow people to succeed in any kind of way.
Yeah. And I think it's funny that even through that, you do all these things, you build that trust. You still, as a leader, if you give someone that leash to go out and fail, and they do fail, when you get called on the carpet for it, and this is the the Jocko extreme ownership stuff, which I do really like that extreme ownership idea. That's still your fault as a leader. So when your boss calls you in the office, it's not, hey, that was them. You don't push it down to your people. Like, 100% my fault.
Yeah.
And not only do you say it, you have to believe it.
Well, but on that same note, as a leader, if you're stepping in all the time and micromanaging, and you don't have an understanding of what the gaps are, then when they make big mistakes or there are these big gaps, they could have been prevented had you allowed them the space to learn and grow. Yeah. But you really don't know as a leader. That gives you such a blind spot as a leader if you don't even know what your own team's gaps are. You don't even know what to fix because you don't even know what the gaps are.
Because you never gave them an opportunity to expose those gaps, so then you can't develop them in other ways as well.
Right. So what would your advice to new leaders or even leaders who have a tendency, if they're like, ooh, you know what, I am micromanaging. What is the first step to, I mean, is it just don't? Is it just don't?
Yeah. No, I think you really have to have the ability or develop the ability to answer the question, what's the worst that's going to happen? like, okay, it's Uvalde. The worst that's going to happen is a lot.
Yeah.
And so you'll see me switch into in situations like that, a completely different style of leadership than I was as a detective sergeant.
Yeah.
Like two very drastic different styles. So, or what's the worst going to happen? I screw that up and I might get my butt chewed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then the payoff is I get my butt chewed and my people build trust and get better, and then it won't happen again.
Right.
So, you have to be really good at answering that question. And if getting your butt chewed or whatever is the worst thing ever, then you honestly really need to reevaluate your position as a leader, because that
That's part of it.
you're never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And if you're so worried about that, you won't be what your people need you to be. Because I got my butt chewed so many times by my boss for things that I had already told my people not to do, and they did it anyway. And then I'm just like, take that butt chewing from you, and take that butt chewing from you, and then I'm gonna go tell them like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to get it together.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's part of being a leader, being a good leader.
Yeah.
So
unless you work for like a great company that does not believe in butt chewing, which I cannot think of one.
no, it's human nature.
Yeah.
And listen, occasionally
It's warranted.
it's warranted.
I agree.
would rather have a boss chew me out and then it be done than a boss that's going to hang paper on me and then hold that against me for the rest of my career. Like, I've had bosses that might chew me out, and I'm not saying all the time, and I'm not saying over little things.
I'm just saying, where did you work?
Oh yeah,
I worked at a completely different place.
Yeah, I mean, I had both.
Yeah,
I had both.
Yeah.
I had bosses that would chew me out, but there's a difference. So the civilian side, there's not as much movement, right? You'll work for the same boss for your whole career.
Yeah.
Where civilians, commissioned, I had different bosses every 2 years. I had good ones, bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
I had in between, and so there's a lot of there's some similarities, right? But there's some differences too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. So, well, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend, leave a review, subscribe, and I appreciate you guys spending time with us today.